Hi there, it's Lachlan Callish here, and this is a brief recording just talking through the prospect of rubric-based grading and the Turnitin Submission Portals, and a slight challenge that we've had in that the sophistication of the Turnitin platform for rubric-based grading is not as great as what has been enjoyed previously using Blackboard's rubric-based grading tool, for example. And in question, looking at this particular subject, Science 102, having worked with Andrew Manning, with the academic in question at their needs, what we were looking at really was the prospect that the rubric for this task, if we have it within Turnitin, so if we find Sci 102 in our list, which we will find in here, so Assessment 2, we actually have a look at the rubric manager for this task. We'll bring it up, find it in our list, Science 102. What we find really is that the three types of marking possible in Turnitin, that being qualitative, where you just highlight a rubric cell and manually determine a mark and enter it into the activity, was not going to be sophisticated enough. The custom build type, which allowed you to determine an individual value for each cell, but not input a score within a range, which is what the academic and his marking team wanted for this activity, not possible. You could still only highlight a cell and it would have, an agreed value for that particular task. This is, when you would change it to the custom rubric type and put in that one score, but you can still only choose the one score. You can't put in a range. And even using weightings, which would allow you to determine percentages and a value for the whole column, but again, not a custom score or a range of scores within a cell for each type. So it's just not able to use the same level of finessed marking possible, rubric-based marking, that we could use in the Blackboard tool. So the workaround is we're not going to use a rubric attached in Turnitin. In this case, we're going to unattach a rubric. So there's no rubric against the task in Turnitin itself. So we'll submit this and save it. And the answer is, in fact, to use the grade center. So back to the LMS, the grade center itself, the column, which is an accessible column. If we edit the column information, we see that the task and the score, etc., so it has a relationship with Turnitin backwards and forwards. It gets a score, but we also have the facility here to add the rubric here rather than in Turnitin. And at that point, we're actually able to grade each of the students' submissions in Blackboard, not Turnitin. So students will submit in Turnitin and they'll ultimately get their grade and things back that way as well. But we can do our marking and our grading using the rubrics through the grade center. So we have added the rubric for this subject and made sure that it allows us to have rubric scores. And what we're going to look at is the process for how that grading is commenced. And in this case, we would click. What's going to happen is that when the students submit in Turnitin, next to their names in the grade center, we'll see an exclamation mark showing that there's a submission there. And once that's in, the marking team will be able to hit this chevron in the right column next to that exclamation mark, and they will be able to click on View Grade Details. If you choose Grade User Activity, it's going to launch Turnitin because it's got that relationship with the tool. But if we click on View Grade Detail, what we get access to here, not only the obviously the sort of the summative feedback, but we get access to the rubric here. So if we click on View Grade and then View Rubric, it opens up our rubric-based grading in Blackboard, right, in the LMS. So this means you can go through, so for example, Andrew and team use the list view where they have their range of scores determined, and then they can select which individual score and then in fact choose which score within the range again. And they can also click the show feedback button here and put in their comments against each of the rubrics as well. So this is a particularly finessed way of approaching the grading. You can put in each of those scores, comments, etc. where you need to, and this will determine what the final grade will be. You can also put in your summative comments there. We'll see here that if you need to change the scores or round them, you can do so, but at the moment that's tallied using that formula through to 21.6 out of 30. And when we hit save, that will then go through to the Grade Centre, and so we can bring up our Grade Centre view again. And so the submission is there, and when the student gets their result in My Grades, they will get the score and the Blackboard rubric there, along with all the comments. On the other hand, the mark or the grade will also be pushed back into Turnitin. So the score will be there, but none of the other feedback essentially that we might have used Turnitin for will have been done in there. We're not using rubric-based grading through Turnitin. We're doing the rubric-based grading through the Grade Centre. You are still able to use some of the Turnitin tools, like the audio-based feedback in Turnitin, and the students will get access to those through Turnitin. So this is using both. The only question really is how the marking team will view the student's submission whilst doing their grading. So the grading's happening through the Grade Centre, through that rubric view that we looked at, but they'll actually need to either open the student's paper from the Turnitin dashboard that we're looking at here. I've opened that through the assessment folder. I've opened the Turnitin Submission Portal, and we'll be able to see them all coming in through here. But you're also able to actually click up here on Download All. At the moment, there's nothing in there. If you need to download all of the student papers, you can do that as well. So you can either view the paper through the dashboard, through Turnitin, and go into your Grade Centre and do your marking, your rubric-based marking. Remember, that's through View Grade Detail, View Rubric. Or alternatively, you can download all the student papers so you have them separately, and then again, View Grade Details, View Rubric to do that marking. What I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to clear the grade and the rubric so that because there isn't a submission there yet. But that's the process that we will be able to use for this. All right, so if we go back to our Grade Centre, we'll just make sure that there's nothing left against any of the student entries. So that's the process. We can use Turnitin for submission. I'm in fact going to clear this entry as well. So that everything's gone. And that's it. So students use Turnitin through the assignment folder to submit their assignment. It's gone in to the Turnitin repository, so we've met that academic integrity requirement of the work being in Turnitin, so we can check for originality. But the actual grading itself can still be done using the Grade Centre columns with rubrics attached to them. So that marking process stays the same through the rubrics, and it will flow back into the Turnitin portal. They can get their mark there, and it will update My Grades for the student.